with Intention, podcast where we bring you stories from around the globe. Hello, and welcome back to another episode on Rise and Thrive Mornings with Intention. And today I have a beautiful guest with me, Mary Ann Hughes. She is a certified special needs divorce coach and an author. So, welcome to my podcast. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here today.
Thank you so much. And please tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, please, Marianne.
Sure. So I'm located in Houston, Texas. Been here for quite a while. I have two now young adult sons on opposite ends of the autism spectrum. And several years ago, I found myself facing divorce and wasn't expecting that and trying to navigate that. Came up with a good situation for me and my family, but in the process decided wanted to help other people to also navigate the process in an easier way. And so I started Special Family Transitions, and I'm now a certified special needs divorce coach, supporting families who have a child with a disability as they're facing divorce and other challenges.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing with us. And yeah, I've been to Houston once before, beautiful city. Hope to visit it once, maybe another time. So your journey as a mother of two boys on opposite ends of the autism spectrum is truly inspiring. Can you share what that experience has been like for you?
Well, the first part when you get the diagnosis for the kids is difficult, but then you get to the point where you want to just do whatever you can to help your kids thrive as best they can. So everyone's journey looks different. People reach different milestones and different abilities at different times. And so it's really important to accept each child for who they are and have them be the best that they can be. But it requires a lot of support and advocacy in terms of a parent role and being involved. And so I pride myself on doing the best I can for my kids. That's my focus from when they were young to now current day. Today, even my older son who's in college, I had to help him with some things. So the job never ends. And so, so grew up and my kids, we were together in the household with their dad for 20 years until we weren't. And so I had to then navigate the process of divorce and help my kids through that. And so that's what led me in my passion to help others so that other kids, whether they're on the spectrum or other special needs or disabilities, can manage and know how to navigate that, not just from the parents' perspective, but also how to help the kids through that.
Of course. So going through a divorce is difficult for anyone. I've been through one myself as well. Unfortunately, things happen sometimes, right? But navigating is it as a parent of special needs children adds another layer of, I would say, complexity. What are some of the biggest challenges you have faced? Would you care to share with us, please?
Sure. So what kind of kept me up at night when I was first going through it is what's going to happen to my kids? How are we going to survive? I had worked before having kids, but I had been a stay-home mom for about 20 years. And so I had to figure out, okay, how my kids' needs going to be met, whether it's financial, whether it's the caretaking, because it take both parents doing different roles and different responsibilities, even at home, and how to plan for their future, because a child with a disability at age 18, which normally when the things regarding divorce kind of end for kids, it's not going to happen for my family. We're going to have needs beyond age 18. So I had to look at it more of a long-term planning as opposed to just get divorced, get it done, and then deal with it later. My approach, coming from my business background, was kind of looking at it as a business plan, as a project, like, okay, what do I need to do and think about as part of this process so that later down the road, things will be easier for us and everybody's needs will be hopefully more assured and comfortable for their life going forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. So you are also an author now, in the co-author in The Other Side of Divorce. Your chapter is called Rise, Lessons in Divorce from a Mom of Children with Special Needs. Can you share the key lessons you want your readers to take away from reading your chapter?
Sure. So when I was thinking about what my biggest lessons were in divorce and what I want to teach to people and help people understand so that they can have a successful process as well, is I came up with the acronym RISE, which stands for different things to do and think about as part of the process. So, for instance, R stands for many things, but one of those is to remember who you are. Like I mentioned, I had experience in the past. I was a successful business person before having kids, and so sometimes when you're been married for a long time, if you're a caregiver for kids, kind of you forget kind of what brought you to this point and who you were before that, besides just being a mom and a wife, and of course doing important things day to day. But I had to kind of go back and remember kind of what used to drive me, that I can get through this process, that I have the skills and the intelligence and abilities and resources around me that I can find to help me get through it. So that's just one example. And then I, for example, can be many things, but one of it is to investigate what your child's going to need and how much it's going to cost and the duration of that, for instance. So that way you can have really good discussions as part of the divorce process, either with your soon to be ex or with your legal team, or hopefully both, and experts as well. And then S, for example, is special needs considerations, because there's things in divorce, as you mentioned, with a child with a disability that are going to be different and more complex, that people may not be aware of, that they have to consider as part of the process. Some lawyers are not really familiar with it if they don't have a lot of experience there. And so you want to be the advocate, as you were for your kids maybe in school, also be the advocate for them as part of the process. But then you want to find experts who understand that. So there's, depending on where you live, whether it's the US or Canada or whichever country, there's different ways that things are handled in each
Yeah.
geography. And so you want to make sure you understand that, whether child support is going to end at a certain age and what it would need to make it last longer, and how to protect your child in terms of getting benefits. And that may look different depending on where you are too. So you have to understand that, learn about that, and find people to help educate you on that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Definitely. It goes sometimes much deeper than we think, until you open that can of worms, as they say. It's like, oh, there's this and that I have to deal with. So it's very good awareness to have when you have to go through challenging times like that. So yeah, definitely something to think about. So, what truly inspired you? Yeah, I mean, you're a coach now and everything, but what was the initial inspiration that took you to write your story, co-author in this book, and how do you hope it will impact other parents going through a similar journey?
Yeah, so when I first started my process, I tried to do it alone. I didn't know there was help. I tried to find help, but honestly, I couldn't find people who could relate or understand or had that knowledge. And so, as I became more of an expert, I decided, well, it's kind of silly for me to keep this all to myself, but have other people recreate the wheel every time this happens. The incidence of divorce among families that have a child with special needs is very high. And so, I want to provide support and help and hope for these families, to know that they're not alone. There are people who have been there and can help guide the way or provide information and support as they go through the process. Because divorce in itself can be difficult enough with all the emotion. But as a coach, I help people go from the emotional divorce to the business of divorce. And so that's my goal as a divorce coach, and then especially with the specialty of special needs, to make sure that people understand what it takes for that child then to be able to thrive in the future, and for the parent to be comfortable that they've done all they can to support them in that process too. And so I had the opportunity where a fellow divorce coach invited me to write a chapter in her book, and all the other chapters are wonderful, providing information and resource and support for divorce. I'm looking at it as looking at the positive side of divorce. It's called, the subtitle of the book is Breakups That Lead to Breakthroughs. And so that's the approach that we want to have people go into, is not divorce being an end, but maybe a beginning or a pathway to something different. That's what it was for me, which kind of led me to what I do and to become an author. So now I'm proud to be an author in this book and be able to share it and have more visibility, so people can see it out there, can get some lessons that I share. And of course, I'm happy to help people, beyond that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know sometimes my questions are very similar, but it's like, different listeners they perceive it differently. So, I've looked into your background on your website, and you have so many multiple certifications. Like it's amazing. So it's so nice to see you have so much background in divorce coaching, meditation, and life coaching. So how do you use these skills to support parents navigating divorce? Like, is there some especially techniques you have, programs? Can you elaborate more on this?
Sure, yeah, happy to. So initially, I was trying to figure out how to help people, and so I went through the basic divorce um, certifications to become a certified divorce specialist, and then certified divorce coach, and then a special needs certified divorce coach. But I decided that those specialties really help one parent uh, and help support one parent. But I saw an opportunity and a need to work with both parents. And that's why I went through mediation training. So I went to regular mediation as well as family law, family mediation training, as well as a parenting coordination, kind of a co parenting approach. So that way I can be a neutral party, not just advocating for one or helping one person, but helping both parents discuss together what the needs are, how they can work together to come to agreement. Because really, my goal in this is for people to spend less time, money, and stress as part of the whole process. And by having an approach where you're kind of fighting against each other, you're kind of forgetting about what this is really all about, and this to provide. Hopefully, people look at it as the providing the best outcome for the child, no matter what your differences are, no matter what led to divorce. Really, what can we do together to make sure that child's going to have what they need and be supported and loved by both parents? I think hopefully a lot of families would be supportive of that. So I see an opportunity and a need for someone to maybe help both parents. So I've had some opportunities to work with both. Granted, that part of my practice is still new, but that is something I'd like to do and offer to people is that even before you go out to lawyers, or even if you're going to go through other mediators or other uh, forms of divorce in your process, take time to understand, what's driving the other party. Can you have discussions together about maybe how do you break the news to the kids? I've had discussions about that with some couples about how can we together tell a child and support them so that it's less anxiety for them as part of the process and in the future. And so I had to deal with it myself. So I've got some tips as well as learning from other professionals and experts out there. And I think that if you set the right tone and the right way to begin a divorce, hopefully it can get through in a much better fashion with less stress and strife for everybody involved.
Yeah, definitely. So, what would you say are some of the common mistakes you see when people are getting divorced with special needs children, and maybe how can we avoid them? Anything that jumps out?
Yeah, so I see a lot of people just trying to rush and get it done. And so the best advice that was given to me was take your time. You're in maybe an emotional state, kind of work through your emotions first before you make any decisions. So whether you're working with a lawyer or trying to make agreements in other ways, kind of think about it as a business decision as opposed to just wanting to get done or looking at it as taking revenge or hurting the other party or not thinking that you have a voice in this because you do. A lot of people think that their attorney is going to handle everything for them, but really you're the one that sets the tone for the divorce and how do you like it to go. And so yeah, so know that you're important as part of the process and that your voice matters and that you're there as your child's voice as well, depending on how the other party and situation is playing out.
Yes, because definitely there's unique cases. Not every divorce is the same. So now moving into the little bit about financial and legal considerations. I know we touched a little bit on it already, but many parents of special need children worry about financial stability post-divorce. What are some key financial planning steps they should maybe take?
Right. So that's kind of the I mentioned in the rise framework is we want to look at what is it going to cost in the future to support this child, and where is this money going to come from? So is it going to come from child support? Is it going to come from some other instruments like maybe spousal support or maybe some trusts that are in place or life insurance policy if something happens to one of the parents or both parents, how is that child going to have what they need to survive. And so there's government benefits, and those are going to be different in each country and the way each state handles them as well. And so you have to understand the rules behind that. So, for instance, in the US, and I'll speak to that because that's my experience, is you can only have a certain amount of money in that child's name. And if you have more than that, they won't qualify or get disqualified from getting government benefits. So you have to be really careful to understand that. So work with financial people, work with estate planning people who can set up things in the right way as part of the divorce process and part of the long-term planning, so that later you're not surprised to say, no, you can't get support, you can't get benefits because you didn't do this correctly as part of the divorce in the first place. So not to say you can't modify, fix that later, but it's much easier to get it right the first time as part of the process.
Mhm. So empowerment and moving forward, what advice would you give to moms who feel overwhelmed and unsure of how to advocate for themselves and their children or child during a divorce?
Yeah, so like you said, you don't can't think of everything all at one time as part of the divorce and not know what to ask for, or not know what to think about. And that's why it's important to work with a team of experts, whether it's a special needs divorce coach, whether it's an attorney who understands that, or there's special financial planners who have experience with special needs as well, and to work with people who understand, who can maybe give you some information about these are the things you need to think about and discuss as part of your divorce, because there's things when your child is young, you want to have things in place, for instance, a parenting plan that's flexible enough to meet the needs. So it may not be a cookie cutter approach that works for other families, but maybe yours is a little bit different. And so, no, that's okay. You don't have to have exactly the same as maybe somebody with a different situation that maybe has neurotypical kids. Um, and yeah, and so all these parties, can work together and do your research and reach out and listen to, things like this to provide information, but definitely seek out support to get through it and know that you've done your homework so that you can do the best job you can. So, for instance, in school, as I mentioned, we advocate for our kids in school all the time. Well, this is no different. We're there as our child's representative who maybe can't express what they need, or, planning for their future. What can we do to make sure that their life is going to be as smooth as possible? They're not going to run into roadblocks in the future. And granted, it is hard to figure all those things out, but there's resources there to help.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I know some people feel like there's nowhere to go, nobody to talk to, but I believe now, especially now more than ever, we have more than enough resources around us. And like you said, don't rush it, but do your research and definitely, not take forever, but take your time and do the right steps before rushing into something that might, uh, not come out the way we want later, right? So lots of amazing points here. You have rebuilt your life post-divorce and now empowering others and helping others. What's next for you? I see on your Facebook profile you do some events. Can you tell us about that more? How can people get in touch with you as well? And where can they find the book? I believe it is on Amazon.
It is on Amazon, and they can go
Okay.
to Amazon.com. They can also go to actiontakerspublishing.com and find it, and they'll get some author bonuses there as well. But yeah, so I see my mission as greater than just divorce. So I'm there in the community. I was just at a resource fair yesterday, and I'll be at one next week, where I'm sharing information with families about not just what I do, but also about other things. For instance, my children, as I mentioned, are different places in their lives in different phases. And so several years ago, as part of the divorce, I had to plan not just a divorce, but also think about what's going to happen to them as into adulthood. And so part of that was looking at programs that would be appropriate after high school. So I put together some videos with people in charge of some programs for universities that have supports for young adults with learning differences, for instance. So I have a playlist of that, and I'm
And where
growing
is
that.
that? Where can we find that? Sorry.
Yeah, so all my social media and all my things are under Special Family Transitions. So
Okay.
whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Special Family Transitions. Also, my personal Facebook is my author name, which is Mary Ann Hughes. So that's an easy way to find me there. But normally, sometimes you may just hear me go by Mary Ann Hughes, because it's just easier and faster to say. So either way, so kind of Google me both ways. But definitely, if you go to my website, which is also Special Family Transitions, there's a link to email me, and there's a link to my several of my social media as well. And so I have playlists, as you mentioned, on my YouTube on these programs, as well as different podcasts that I've done and different information that I share. So yeah, I'm there to provide information to families, know that they're not alone, whether it's divorce or other transition issues. I've done presentations in front of a university for special needs professionals, for diagnosticians, to kind of help them understand different phases of transition, not just divorce, but what happens at different phases and what happens when somebody goes from the high school to the adult world, because that is a big thing in a special needs child's life and journey. But it's also a big thing as part of divorce, and that's where it gets tricky because kind of tie it all together. So sometimes people, when their kids are young, just want the divorce and maybe either don't have the diagnosis at the time, or they're not sure how it's going to impact them in the future. So you can always go back and modify things. But if you already know that child has needs that are just not going to go away, whether it's intellectual or behavioral or physical challenges, then you want to incorporate that. A lot of states and countries have different ways to address that as part of the divorce process, where maybe you can get longer term supports and other things in place that will make your life and that of your child much easier in the future. So definitely you want to be aware of those things. Think about that as part of the divorce, as opposed to just say we'll deal with that later when they turn 18 or we know more. Sometimes there may be pushback, like you said, there may be some conflict, but know that it's an important thing to at least talk about and try to include as part of your divorce documents that your child does have a disability, and that way it'll be helpful for lots of different reasons in the future.
Awesome. And of course, we will post the links in this video once it's released, so you'll be able to find all the information how to get in touch with Mary Ann. Thank you so much for all this wonderful information. And the name of the podcast is Rise and Thrive Mornings with Intention. And I know we're talking about intention here, different than divorce, but still, how important do you think it is to set intention first thing in the morning?
I think it's very important. Some people, whether they're in a divorce situation or just kind of overcome by all the responsibilities that they have, taking care of their child with additional needs, they may just go in dreading the day or anxious about what's going to happen that day or uncertainty about what's going to happen that day. And so I would say, and I've learned over time, kind of think about, first of all, taking time, kind of like you said about meditation, about whatever it is that you need to feel good to start the day. So maybe get up a few minutes earlier. Maybe it's have a cup of coffee before you go up to your stairs to your kids, like my situation. But you want to have be in a good mindset so that you can make good decisions and good priorities for the day. So part of that is thinking about what are your top 3 priorities maybe for that day. You may have a huge long to-do list, and it's not practical that you're going to get through all those things. But what is it that we have to do today that's going to move the needle, one for us, and what's important that our kids need to get done that day, and what's important maybe in your professional life or your divorce that you want to get done that day. So I would say if you have maybe one per category and feel like you've accomplished that, at least one of those, per category, then you've had a good day. And if you can get through more of the items on your list, great. If you can't, then it's okay. Then they weren't as urgent, and there's things that come up that we have to address, and give yourself grace for not maybe having the day go as you planned, but know that at least you've done something with intention that is productive and makes a difference, hopefully in a positive way in your life.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your wonderful insights today. And thank you everyone else who was able to tune in and listen to our podcast. And thank you, Mary Ann, for being here. And thank you very much to our listeners. And I hope everybody has a beautiful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.